Hello viewers and welcome to it. This is this week's edition of Economics 101, a current affairs program that takes a look at everything to do with economics and the prevailing economic situation in our country. Today we are talking about the agricultural sector, which is a sector that contributes integrally to the sustainability of our economy. As you know, agriculture is the backbone of our country. Thus, we are an agro-based economy as a Zimbabwe. And now the great question of the day is, are we getting a fair share of the global agricultural market, or we're being shortchanged along the agricultural value chain? Now, to help us unpack this, we have invited to our studio Mr. Basil Nyabadza, who is an agricultural expert as well as a seed expert, no stranger to our program here, Economics 101 and its value chains. Mr. Basil Nyabadza, a pleasure to have you once again.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Now, we are tracking our story today and we'll get right into it. At this time of the year, what do you think the farmers should be doing since the planting season has started with the onset of our rains?
Thank you very much. I think it's fair to say that science and technology lead us now in our agriculture. Yes, we have had some rainfall, but I think we must be cautious and take opinion from designated agencies which assist us. The meteorological office will highlight from time to time the likely patterns of rainfall throughout the country. I think this is preparation. Yes, some have started planting, but mostly it's preparation. Anticipating that within 3-4 weeks, the real rains will now start and all of us will be prepared. So the farmers now are making sure that seed availability is prioritized, fertilizer availability, tillage issues, generally making sure that you are prepared. And of course, you must remember we have various segments of our agriculture. The preparations differ. And this year, we've all been warned that an El Nino position awaits us, season 23-24. So given that scenario, I think the general info coming through is that there will be limited rains in some areas, and in some areas not quite as much as we would want. So we must be innovative about our planting. In other words, the right seeds for the particular geography of a particular area and the ecological regions, all that has been factored, and there have been broad guidelines extended. For example, regions 4 and 5, they are going to concentrate on traditional grains. And then regions 1, 2, 3, some even 4 will do our cereals. So I think that's the sort of level of preparation, mind awareness to face adequately the challenges of an El Nino given scenario.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, factoring in the fact that you are someone who is very keen or has particular interest to seeds, you did mention issues to do with science and technology, which is the development stage that we are in as a country. How best do you think some of these seeds, or some of the places that some of these seedlings should be planted, how are we using, or how are we harnessing science and technology to be able to effectively use some of these advancements in these regions that you're talking about?
Well, climate change is a direct threat to our agriculture, and we have to bring mitigation measures to the table. And I'm pleased that there is sound leadership emanating from our Ministry of Agriculture, warning us of what we must not do, emphasizing what we must do. But there are 5 critical stages in agriculture. In every crop, there's your research, your production, your processing, your marketing, and indeed consumption. And that's a set of value chains. The farmer must see that he or she is a participant in as many of that scenario. And at the moment, you mentioned tobacco in your opening remarks. Yes, we produce tobacco annually, but we are now becoming experts of shipping value outside our borders. And I don't think that's the best thing to do. And I think the Second Republic has prioritized that it's about research here, production here, processing here, marketing here, consumption is then here and abroad.
Yes.
But we have tended to this day to remain a source of raw material on behalf of other economies outside Zimbabwe, outside SADC, outside Africa. And this then filters to our education system. We were brought up very much, sadly, products of the federation system. And we must graduate and fight that system, to which more or less compelled us to say Zimbabwe raw materials are destined for other economies outside our borders.
Okay.
It's us to revisit those basic positions and say tea, for example. What are we doing to our tea? What percentage are we exporting? Are we processing here? Cotton is a fine example. What are we doing with that? So once we start looking at those statistics, this is where really the value chain must remain. And when we retain value chain within Zimbabwe, within our borders, technology inflow to process, to market, to consume, byproducts which come from those products, then enhance job creation within various provinces, districts within our economy.
Absolutely.
If you look at agriculture, it's the source of value. There are towns, there are cities built on cotton, on tea, on tobacco. And yet, we, to this day, by and large, we are pushing value outside our borders. It's a formula designed by someone else, not necessarily the Second Republic. And the Second Republic must now say, hang on here, Mr. Brown did this, is it really benefiting us? And they stretch the argument, and this is where we are as a nation. Let's not just grow raw materials for onward shipment. We want to grow raw materials, sharpening our research, experts emerging from our tertiary institutions to say, look, in tobacco, I'm a specialist only in research. Someone comes and say, look, on production techniques, on processing techniques. If we do so, then I think value retention will ultimately flow back to the farmer.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Mr. Nyabadza, homegrown value retention. That is what we're having the conversation here on Economics 101. We're going to take a short break. Don't go anywhere. This is a ZBC TV. Viewers, welcome back. If you've just joined us, we are having a conversation with Mr. Basil Nyabadza here on Economics 101, speaking all things to do with one of the integral parts of our economy, which is agriculture, the backbone of our economy. We are looking at some thrilling statistics currently that have to do with some of the contributions that agriculture has made to the Zimbabwean economy as we track Vision 2030. Mr. Basil Nyabadza, we want to speak a little bit about the November budget. Do you think that Treasury is doing enough to subsidize farmers, and what do you think should be done to safeguard our farmers as we are tracking a time in which we believe that we are speaking all things to do with agriculture being the backbone? How much of a contribution within the budget does agriculture have to take with regards to stakes?
Thank you very much. Now, a budget is a very important instrument which touches the respective value chains of any economy. In Zimbabwe, we are not an exception. We are a key player within SADC. We as a nation have prioritized the use of land, believing that value comes from the land. And I think by any standard, Zimbabwe stands out. We have gone for a full position to say, look, value comes from the land, whether it's mining, whether it's agriculture, whether it's services. Primarily, the source is the land. Now, we must follow up that by now realizing that we are gifted within SADC. We have a fine weather pattern we have water reserves, we have fertile land, we have animals, we have livestock. So the segments within our agriculture, the key ones, are found in Zimbabwe. But what we have got to now pursue is to link our agriculture with education. We are pleased that Honorable Morwira, our Minister of Higher and Tertiary Education, is pushing an agenda which is practical and to link, to say, look, let's not just talk about production, but let's add value. And value yesterday was only added in urban areas. Chitungwiza, for example, was founded on the back of cotton. You go to Chegutu, it was cotton. You go to Midlands. Midlands was a combination of minerals, but cotton again featured in that. Gokwe, one of the key districts which produces cotton, is found in Midlands province.
Oh, yes.
But if you go to Gokwe, if you go to Nyabadza, there is more of extraction of that crop, production of that crop. It's moved elsewhere. In other words, the value is transferred elsewhere. And when you transfer value from the village, naturally, the villagers, some of them follow that trend.
Oh, yes.
Then we crowd our cities. We want accommodation, we want water, we want electricity. If we said, Gokwe, you produce fine cotton. Now, follow it up by attracting investment in Gokwe through the Minister of State and Devolution in Midlands. To target Gokwe and say, look, you produce now, what else can you do to cotton? We then keep our people in Gokwe, thereby retaining value at source.
Is there inflow and outflow with regards to cash flow in such circumstances?
Yes.
Are we looking at a time where there's fair exchange from perhaps we start from the top, which is the consumer, but the person who's responsible for production, is there not going to be hindrances with regards to the flow of funds in such situations, which is perhaps why they end up migrating to the city?
Let me give you a fine example. Tobacco, we pronounce it as a success crop.
Yes.
But when you analyze, we are a source of tobacco. In other words, we are taking value elsewhere, where they start with research. They've received it, they now research it and say, look, what type of tobacco is coming from Zimbabwe? What else can we do? And they add value. And by many times, we end up being the customer of the consumables. And then if you take your tobacco, you take your tea, you take your cotton, and other minerals, we are also consumers of things which have originated from ourselves. We must attract capital to go to Gokwe. There's a formula for that. Public-private partnership. Build, operate, transfer. In other words, business coming together with government to follow value. And normally it's found on source. Even technology will follow value. Technology to do cotton, we hear of in Europe, some cities, if you go to Lancashire, it's renowned for cotton products, but they never grow a kg because of the weather. So we are saying, let's mitigate that by coming together. They might have the technology. We have the source product. Let's link up. This is what we are lacking in Africa. This is what we are lacking in SADC. And indeed in Zimbabwe, we must sharpen our position. We want not just Vision 2030. We want a profitable Vision 2030. That's the word which is critical here. Profitable. Once it's profitable, the farmer will pick up something here. The processor will pick up something here. The designer will pick something here. The marketeer will pick something here. And indeed, the consumer will pick something else. It's when value flows that I believe is the main agenda of the Second Republic.
Absolutely, and we're still keeping in line with issues to do with the budget. We're looking at fiscal and monetary policies, Mr. Nyabadza, that are not necessarily so conducive for the everyday farmer. This is with regards to currency issues, and we are currently facing issues. I think as we were having our brief earlier on, we are also facing times in which even people within the farming sector are struggling because of the discrepancies that come with the RTGS and USD. How best do you think that can be salvaged with regards to that being a problem within this sector in particular?
As I said earlier on, the budget is a key instrument which regulates and gives a character of an economy. And here we must look at the key players in any economy. A miner is a key player, a farmer is a key player, a technocrat is a key player. Indeed, education, those who assist us with education, they are key players. But it's the combination of that which I think must be encouraged. The farmer here in Zimbabwe takes risk. Look at what happened in the last 48 hours. Unexpected rains.
Yes, absolutely.
Have come in. Possibly 60-70% of our wheat crop is still in the fields. That's the risk being borne by the farmer. Is he secured? The farmer plays a critical role in salvaging a position for the whole economy. So we are saying the financial instruments at play at the moment, the instruments which are expected from our respective, whether they be banks, insurance houses, I think we are not quite speaking to Mai Chimuti, if you push me, if you ask me. I think Mai Chimuti is struggling. She's seen at a particular time, then that's it. A holistic approach to say, look, for example, I'll cite this example. In our budget, we would like to see something which throws in venture capital as a must in our economy. We have got a system of financing, whether it's production, whether it's processing, it's traditional. It's not speaking to technology and risk-taking. It's not just provision of money. It's also participation. And we are saying venture capital must be found in agriculture. Our agriculture finance cooperation and end it where government has got a strong position, I think the jury is out, if you ask me. It's speaking yes to a broader agenda, but Mai Chimuti is specific in Mrewa, in Nyanga, in Cholocho. And I think she's divorced, if you ask me. She's divorced from the real application of some of these policies. So the budget must target and say, look, Mat North, what can we do for Mat North? Equally, what can we do for Masvingo? Because Masvingo has got some characteristics which are unique. For example, our sugar comes from Chiredzi, a key district in Masvingo. Are we addressing that? Are we going further than rather staying on a macro position? Let's be micro in some of the deliberations and outputs from our national budget.
Absolutely. And with regards to venture capitalism, with what you've just mentioned, would you say that the everyday Zimbabwean will be happy or would also understand some of the discrepancies, for lack of a better word, around tackling or grabbing such opportunities?
There's innovation here, and we are pleased that the first...
Because you are speaking of Mai Chimuti, and
yes.
Mai Chimuti, would she understand that, okay, there's actually provisions within the budget, and is there enough awareness being raised that there are certain projects that can be undertaken through some of the provisions of venture capitalism, like you're saying?
Let me take advantage of my age.
Yeah.
When Comrade Chidzero was in charge of our finances then, in the 80s, and you would make sure you want to be near the radio or near some communication center to tune in and listen to the budget.
Yes.
I'm not too sure whether that enthusiasm is still there today.
Absolutely. We have community radio stations.
Yeah, but they are there. But whether Mai Chimuti tunes in to say, now the Minister of Finance is on the radio, let me listen to the budget, I'm not too sure about that. Something has been lost because it's not practical. It's too technical. And she cannot comprehend some of the issues which are coming out of that. And those who represent us, whether they be ministers, whether they be legislators, whether they be councillors, themselves, are they comprehending what's coming out from the budget? I'm not too sure about that. So a budget touches everybody, the whole segments of our nation. But we are linked here to production, productivity, inflow of technology, and exports. Because Mai Chimuti also wants a nostro account as a must to mitigate her circumstances on a weekly, daily basis. Yes. So we have to now realize and always to reflect. To say, look, is this budget talking to Mai Chimuti in Muzarabani? I'm not too sure about that.
Absolutely. Yes. Looking at agricultural inclusion from all fronts, as you can hear that we're talking about Chiredzi, Mashingo, all the way to Muzarabani, and we are still tracking all things to do with agriculture here on Economics 101. We are here with Mr. Basil Nyabadza, an agricultural expert. Please do stay tuned as we bring you more. Thank you so much, viewers. This is the third and final segment of Economics 101, your favorite program here on ZBC TV that tracks everything to do with economic matters here in our country, Zimbabwe. Now, as if you are just joining us, we are joined here in studio by Mr. Basil Nyabadza. Mr. Basil Nyabadza, an agricultural expert as well as agronomist, who is also going to be tracking a little bit to do with finance. Now, we do know that we were speaking about venture capitalism. Now, the everyday Zimbabwean, for the uninitiated, may want to know, our viewers may want to have an appreciation of what you mean when you say that venture capitalism should be integrated within our budget. We were tracking issues to do with the November budget, which is on its way.
Yes. Now, I think it's important, yes, to advise the public what we mean by venture capital. Now, venture capital, it means those who provide finance and those who receive that provision come together. They are both risk takers, equally leading to profit takers. And many people, they've got brilliant ideas, but it's to start. But if you've got someone who says, hang on here, I've got venture, I've got some money here. I want to come into your organization, and there's going to be administration, there's going to be finance, there's going to be human resources. We will take part together. That's imparting real, tangible skills to the risk taker, who is the business person. So we are saying, my Chimuti in the village, she's a key partner. She produces a number of crops, but she might lack finance. Then you say, look, my Chimuti, let's grow groundnuts together. Let's grow tobacco together. That's venture capital. But venture capital must not just end that I've assisted you with production, I'm getting my production out. It's now to say we are partners right down to the profit position.
And it becomes a long-term based relationship.
Because you are growing my Chimti to grow herself. In 3-4 years' time, she's a graduate now. She can now assume a higher hectareage to grow. She can now do A, B, C, D, because she has been trained by association. That's the beauty of venture capital. Many a time today, our banks issue the money against security. And if there are any consequences there, you will face it. They've got their position covered here.
Is this a model that has been integrated before within our fiscal and monetary policies over the years? You did come to me with issues to do with experience. In your experience, yes, has that been something that has been integrated and worked?
Yes.
Tried and tested model?
Good question. I'm a product of, a beneficiary of a venture capital. We used to have what we called Venture Capital Company of Zimbabwe. They will take equity in the venture and be a participant, not just at policy level. Day to day, they want to know what's going on. And they cross-pollinate with you, the risk taker. And at the end of the day, you share the proceeds of that. Let's say for 3 years. Let's say you could, for micro businesses, you could reduce it to a year or 2 years. But they are participants and imparting skills in the process. How to manage, how not to take money, if business money used for funeral things. That's empowering our people. That's graduating them. That is lacking at the moment. Many times of our fellow Zimbabweans, they go into marketing, buying and selling. Even that's where venture capital comes in and say, hang on here, what are you buying it? What are you selling it? Are you really making a profit? Is it only for a month or a month? So we are saying, let's attract venture capital into our economy.
Okay.
What happened to the Zimbabwe Venture Capital Company of Zimbabwe? What happened to it? Some of us are living testimony. They took equity in my business for the first 5 years, and I graduated from that, knowing one or two things which I might not have been familiar. But I've been subjected to equity where I offer either my title deeds or I offer other kind of security. And if things go wrong, of course, the bank is covered. Let's go together. We are not traveling together as an economy. And as a result, I think we are not achieving what we should as a nation, as an economy.
Absolutely. Yes. And the everyday farmer, perhaps we want to speak to not just Mai Chimuti, who is an established farmer or has experience, but perhaps the young person who wants to perhaps venture into farming. Say they have gotten that particular access to venture capital. What is the next step with regards to getting into perhaps a space that you now occupy or into an established farmer's role?
Yes. Well, the bigger picture is that we are very pleased that the government of Zimbabwe, especially under the Second Republic, have embraced public-private partnerships. In other words, we are saying to do our roads, to do our irrigation, to do our schools, to do our transport, money does not necessarily come from Treasury, because Treasury has got limitations. Let's invite capital inflow. But once you invite capital, there has to be enabling environment for that money to be secure and indeed to be paid back on time. So we are now saying, let's review our financial options as an economy. Youngsters coming through our colleges, very knowledgeable, but they lack one critical issue, and that's capital. Let them make mistakes, but you see now, you mitigate when you have got venture capital attached to your project. Because they'll tell you, hang on, young man, young woman, from experience, you don't do that. This is what you do. And that enthusiasm must never be taken away. It must remain, but under a guided approach. That's what, and that is where the venture capital aspect is powerful, especially to agriculture. Agriculture is now facing a serious issue, climate change. It's permanent. It's coming in different forms. Are we prepared? I think we need venture capital to mitigate some of the consequences, negative consequences, which come out of that scenario.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Mr. Basil Nyabadza, I wish this could be a series that we carry on tracking here on Economics 101, talking about all things to do with agriculture. It's always a pleasure to have you in studio, sir.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And please do make sure that you stay tuned here on ZBC for more of these exciting conversations. This is Economics 101, where we keep you up to speed with all things to do with the Zimbabwean economy at large. Now, my name is Kurtley Gwindi. In studio, I was joined by Mr. Basil Nyabadza, an agronomist as well as agricultural expert. Always a pleasure to have him in studio. And from me, Kurtley Gwindi, it is indeed a pleasant viewing, and God bless Zimbabwe.